So before we jump into those frequently asked questions, a quick overview of the program, and then I'll pass it over to Shamarcus to start covering those FAQs. So Virtual NSLI-Y is a U.S. Department of State program, and Shamarcus and I, as I said, work for American Councils for International Education, which helps to administer the program in close collaboration with the U.S. Department of State. It's structured into a 10-week beginner level program, and it's a foreign language and culture experience. And unlike overseas NSLI-Y or sort of traditional NSLI-Y, this is a 100% online experience. Could you head, yeah, just for a minute, let's stay on this slide. So I do want to emphasize that all virtual NSLI-Y classes are designed for students who have no prior experience with the language, and students who have never even studied a foreign language before are definitely encouraged to apply. All you really need to succeed in this program is a strong commitment to language learning and an interest in other cultures. Currently, we offer Arabic, Mandarin Chinese, Hindi, Korean, Russian, and Turkish as our virtual NSLI-Y languages. The number of sections and available times can depend on teachers' availability and budget considerations, but all languages in fall 2023 will have between 1 and 4 sections per term. All right, we can move on to the next slide. So virtual NSLI-Y classes are 90 minutes long twice a week after school, and there are no more than 10 students in each section to ensure that you get plenty of time to interact with the teacher and with the guest speakers. Homework tends not to be too heavy, as we recognize that you are also attending school, but there may be up to 3 hours of assignments per week to make sure that the language, the things that you're learning in class are getting consolidated between those sessions. Over the course of the program, you'll also get to meet at least 4 guest speakers who will join your classes to give you more cultural context and information. We hear a lot of really positive things about those guest speakers from our students, from our participants. So those can include overseas NSLI-Y alumni who have lived in a country where that language is spoken, professionals who use their language or cultural skills, and experts on cultural arts and cuisine. Quite a few of our classes have maybe a cooking session where you're cooking live. We send all participants a small package of materials that go along with your classes to either help with, you might be doing a craft, or you might be cooking something, or you might be doing both, or you might be learning calligraphy. So every section has something kind of fun and really interactive as part of their experience. There are also optional student group meetings led by Shamarcus, which happen outside of the language classes to make sure that you get to have some more fun and get to know each other a little bit better across the different class sections, because maybe there's 40 students studying Arabic, for example, but there's only 10 students in your class. We want to make sure that you're getting to connect with the students in those other classes or who are learning other languages so that you can build your community. And I think Shamarcus will talk a little more about that later. And you might also hear from additional NSLI-Y alumni in those meetings or other speakers. All right. So I won't spend too much time on eligibility requirements because we do have this information in our website, and we also have a webinar on YouTube that has goes into a lot more detail about eligibility and the application requirements. But just briefly, here's a quick overview on this slide of the requirements, and do check out our website for class schedule options, participation requirements, the student agreement. All of that is available on our website, which will provide the link to that at the end of this presentation. And then the next slide is similarly, we won't go into too much detail, but here's the direct link to our application. If you just want to head straight there, you can see this link here, or you can just go to our website, nsliforyouth.org/virtual, to find additional information as well as a link to the application. While we do ask for a school transcript as part of your application, Your motivation for learning about foreign languages and cultures is really, we put more emphasis on that than your school grades. And also we want to note that while Virtual NSLI-Y provides students with grades as a tool to help you benchmark your progress, this is not a credit-bearing course. And the goal of the program is not to get a 100%. It's to get you comfortable with your selected language and to motivate you to keep learning after your program is over. In addition, there is not a GPA requirement for this program for Virtual NSLI-Y, which differs from traditional NSLI-Y. For any questions you have about the application itself, or if you encounter any technical issues, please be sure to contact us. We'll provide that information at the end as well, how you can contact us before the application due date, which is next week, next Thursday. It's coming up. For fall 2023. And on the day of the application deadline, we tend to receive a very high volume of questions. So please do plan ahead if you do have any questions that aren't answered today or that come up for you later. All right. Our next slide is just a little preview of what the timeline will look like for applicants. The application is open now, closes next week on June 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern. So please be sure to adjust that to your local time zone. For example, I'm on the West Coast, so it would be 1 p.m. for me here in Seattle. So do plan ahead. Don't wait until the last second to apply. Also, we want to note that we do not have rolling admissions. So applications are only reviewed after the application deadline. We're not looking at any applications until the application has closed. We will start to notify applicants starting in late June and possibly continuing through late July. The slide says early August, but we should be wrapped up by then. That is our plan. And the Virtual NSLI-Y Fall 2023 program officially begins in September 2023 during the week of September 10th. So depending on what day your class is, that might vary, but that's when the program officially begins. And then there are also some pre-program requirements in August to help you jumpstart your learning. So there will be an orientation, of course, and then there will be materials to, for example, if you are studying a language that uses completely different characters or a different alphabet, we know that you might want to take a look at some materials before you get started so that you can take the most advantage of your beginner class once it begins. And then the program wraps up for fall 2023 in mid-November. There is a closing ceremony after that, but essentially your last week of class is in mid-November before Thanksgiving break. If you're more interested in our 2024, our winter 2024 program, then the application will be released in September. So you're not going to find too many details about that on our website now, but please do keep an eye or sign up for our emails on the NSLI-Y website if you would like to be notified as early as possible about the opening for that. But it's going to be in September that we'll start looking at applications for winter, which begins in January 2024. Okay, and with that, I am going to pass things over to Shamarcus, who will share some answers to some of the most common questions that we receive. And after that, we will open it up for your remaining questions.
Thank you, thank you. Sorry, just responding to one question in the Q&A chat box. But yes, as Angela mentioned, my name is Shamarcus, and for this section, I just want to cover a few questions we think may come up during the Q&A session. To start, for the first question, did this program move online because of COVID-19? No, Virtual NSLI-Y is a NSLI-Y program option for novice language learners, which started in 2019 and was designed to be online only. The difference is, or this is different from the NSLI-Y program, which was designed to take place abroad. For the second question, does every student who applies to Virtual NSLI-Y automatically get accepted? No. Student applications are evaluated in a merit-based selection process. Next questions, what's the GPA requirement for this program? unfortunately, we do not have one. Virtual NSLI-Y does not have a GPA requirement. We encourage all students who meet our eligibility requirements, which can be found on our website, and have a sincere interest in foreign languages and cultures to apply for Virtual NSLI-Y. Can I apply to the program if I am a U.S. citizen attending high school in Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, or the Northern Mariana Islands? Absolutely. Just be sure to make your class times or your classes on time. And this was relevant to one of the questions I was recently answering in the Q&A chat box for students who may be on the West Coast. In your application, you're able to rank your scheduling preferences. So there's different class sections that are Monday, Wednesdays, or Saturday, Sundays. I'm probably getting the days wrong, but there are multiple options for different class times. So you are able to rank based on when you're available and when you're not in your classes. And so you will want to put as your top choice the best time for you to attend your Virtual NSLI-Y classes. Next questions. Can I continue to do Virtual NSLI-Y for a second term? No, Virtual NSLI-Y is a beginner level only course. Once you attend the program, you become ineligible. One of our eligibility requirements is that you're not a participant or not a previous participant of a NSLI-Y program. Therefore, you've already become alumni program. Therefore, you're not eligible for it anymore. And then also you become very much more proficient in your language. So you're no longer at that novice language that we're looking for. But we do recommend that you apply for the overseas programs. So that's the NSLI-Y summer or the NSLI-Y academic programs, or even Star Talk, right? To continue your language studies. For the next question, I'm finishing my senior year now. Am I eligible for NSLI-Y after I graduate high school? You will not be eligible for Virtual NSLI-Y after this point or once you graduate, but we do recommend programs such as CLS Spark or even other ECA programs that you can find on their website where it's targeted towards college students. Next questions, do I have to pay to apply or to participate in Virtual NSLI-Y? No, not at all. This is a scholarship program of the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. Therefore, we will cover all that needs to be covered for you to comfortably participate in the program. Can I apply to Virtual NSLI-Y if I have never studied a language before? Absolutely. Virtual NSLI-Y is for complete beginners. Priority is given to students who have had fewer language and cultural study or learning opportunities. I've studied my preferred language before. I'm still a beginner. Am I eligible for Virtual NSLI-Y? No. Virtual NSLI-Y classes are intended for true beginners with no prior experience studying the language. And this is sort of to your benefit as well, because these classes are going to study or start on a very beginner level. So that your form of study or your study beforehand coming into the program may already put you at an advantage than other students who have had absolutely no contact with the language thus far. And so it's by design for students who are just starting their journey with their target language. My current school year isn't complete. What should I submit as my transcript? Please submit your most recent transcript. So that can be, say for instance, you're in the 10th grade, you submit what you have thus far from the beginning of your semester, just a snapshot or screenshot or something of that sort, and that will suffice. We do not require that you submit an official transcript. It can be unofficial, so no worries. You don't have to go bang on your guidance counselor's door and say, hey, I need my transcript right now. An unofficial transcript will suffice. Also, I'm excited about the Virtual NSLI-Y language I'm applying for, but I barely know anything about it. Is this for me? Yes. Virtual NSLI-Y is designed for total novices. You will need to be committed to language and cultural learning to have a successful experience. Can I still apply for NSLI-Y overseas or academic year if I participate in Virtual NSLI-Y? Yes. This is Virtual NSLI-Y and NSLI-Y, we like to stress that these are two separate programs, but they do, Virtual NSLI-Y is a good program to help you prepare or start your journey to go into programs like the overseas program with NSLI-Y. There is a separate application. The summer NSLI-Y program has already closed. They've already went through the selection program or process, but the academic year NSLI-Y program will open at some point. I can't say when the date is, but if you're interested, we highly recommend that you check out the overseas programs and see what interests you there. What if I need to miss a class? For our policy, we have a policy where you can miss 3 classes, but they have to be excused absences. So the process is that if you anticipate missing one of your classes, you would reach out to me, as well as your teacher, just to let us know, like, hey, I have a field trip with my school tomorrow. I won't be able to make my class. I'm just letting you know in advance. And they'll help us understand, like, or just keep count of how many absences you have, as well as able to readjust the class. Well, not readjust, but know that you won't be in class that day. Also, who is the best person to complete my recommendation? The best person to complete your recommendation is someone who can speak on how well you are in terms of like your readiness for the program, as well as your motivation. So this doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher. Most times students reach out to their teachers to complete a recommendation. That's absolutely fine, but it's not necessary. It can be a coach, it can be your guidance counselor, right? It can be anyone who can speak well on your behalf. It just cannot be a family member, right? So I know mom would write a stellar recommendation on your behalf, of course, right? But we wouldn't want parents or family members to write your recommendation. What are the differences between Virtual NSLI-Y and NSLI-Y overseas programs? Well, for one, Virtual NSLI-Y is for beginners only, while NSLI-Y overseas is for all language levels. Virtual NSLI-Y is entirely virtual, while NSLI-Y is, of course, overseas, right? You go abroad. And there's no abroad component to Virtual NSLI-Y, so it's completely virtual. Virtual NSLI-Y takes place during the school year. NSLI-Y overseas, there's 2 of them. The summer one happens during the summer period, while the academic one happens during the academic year. Also, we offer 6 language options, and I'm blanking on, I think there's like, what, 1 more or 2 more for the NSLI-Y program. But we offer 6 language options for Virtual NSLI-Y. Why should I study a critical language? Well, it's very important. As someone who's studied abroad and studied several languages, I'm very novice at all the languages I studied. But yes, it's very important. I think it's very great for you. It can support academic achievement, provide cognitive benefits, and affect positive changes in attitude towards other cultures. It can also lead to exciting career and study opportunities. For instance, working for Virtual NSLI-Y. Yes. All righty, so that's it for frequently asked questions. Now we will open the floor to any specific questions you may have. Please use the Q&A box to post any questions you have, and we will answer some directly through the chat and others through just reading them out loud. And Angela and I will just go back and forth.
Yeah, I've just reserved a bunch of them because there are a bunch that are somewhat related, relating to eligibility in terms of like how much of a language you know and choosing a language. So, but these are all great questions coming in. So yeah, there's a few different flavors of this question. One is relating to the overseas NSLI-Y program and the relationship between virtual NSLI-Y and overseas NSLI-Y. So you do have to do, if you do both, you have to do virtual NSLI-Y first. If you go overseas, you will no longer be eligible for virtual NSLI-Y. So do keep that in mind. However, there is no downside to doing virtual NSLI-Y first. And in fact, if you apply for virtual NSLI-Y and you get through the program, that will be noted on your application for overseas NSLI-Y that you've already completed virtual NSLI-Y and and completed your program and did a good job, hopefully that will be noted in your applications. So it's not a guarantee for, if you complete Virtual NSLI-Y, you do well. That doesn't mean you are absolutely going on overseas NSLI-Y, but it doesn't hurt in any way. That said, you do need to complete it before going abroad. And we recommend, if you are, I think there was a question about, can I do Virtual NSLI-Y for one language? Can I do overseas NSLI-Y for another language? Yes, but of course it might help to see that you're focused in a certain, in a certain area, and you have a specific interest in a particular language. But there's no it's not necessarily a negative, but do be thinking about how the two programs might complement one another. Additionally, so how do you prioritize those without any foreign language experience? What if you have some experience in a language that is a different Virtual NSLI-Y language, but not the one you're going to study? So we do, as Shamarcus noted, we do try to prioritize students who have not had opportunities to study any of the NSLI-Y languages before. That doesn't mean that if you speak one of them that you're not going to get in. That's not the case. But if there's a student who hasn't had the opportunity to learn any of these languages before and they're really excited about it and they're able to articulate that, then they might have an edge over someone who is otherwise equivalent but is already fluent in another critical language, for example. So it's a consideration when we're reviewing applications. We do keep that in mind. And yeah, this person says the info is somewhat hard to find in the FAQ because there's not a hard answer in either direction, but we do prioritize students who haven't had those opportunities. Similar questions, I'm going to mark this one as done. Similar questions. So if a student has studied a language since they were in first grade, they wouldn't be eligible to do Virtual NSLI-Y in that language. They would be too advanced for this program. So this is really intended for true beginners who are starting with, like, they can't read the alphabet. Maybe they know, hello, goodbye, and some basic phrases, but that's there's no upper level version of Virtual NSLI-Y, which is different from overseas NSLI-Y, which accepts students of all levels. Similar, if there's a student, so we do have some what we call them heritage speakers, students who maybe their family speaks the language, but the student does not. That is, as long as the student really is a true beginner, they would be eligible for this program. But we don't want a student to apply and then find out that the program is not, it's a level underneath where they're at. And we also consider that in a group of 10 students, if 9 of them are true beginners, and then we have one student who can already read and can already, speak a little bit, that really sort of affects the dynamic of the group. And so we really are looking for true beginners. So again, it's more about the level of the student and their knowledge and whether a true beginner course is going to be appropriate for them, and that might depend on the student. And I think there was one more like related one. Maybe not. There's oh, and here's one more. I'm not a novice in Arabic, so I can't apply for the Arabic program, and I'll apply for another language. So in terms of other programs, we can send you some recommendations for other programs, but yeah, so overseas NSLI-Y, again, accepts all language levels. So we would recommend looking at that one. We would also recommend looking at StarTalk. That's at startalk.info. That runs K through 12 programs for critical languages. So those are some recommendations. But yeah, for Virtual NSLI-Y, you have to be a true beginner. And then one more, and then I'll pass it over to Shamarcus. In terms of how you choose class sections. So when you go through the application, you'll be asked to provide your preferences for what times there are. So it is the case that, we're somewhat limited by our teachers' availability. And so there may very well be, you want a certain language, but the time that the teacher is able to teach it isn't going to work for you. That does occasionally happen. And then we might recommend, try to get you into your second language option, for example. But it really, it depends on the language and the teacher. So we would say apply, and then we will do our absolute best, first of all, to get you into your first language choice. But you can choose up to 2 languages, and your second language can be any. That is an option. Just be sure that whatever class, whatever languages you choose, that you would be willing to actually study that language, so that you're not potentially like taking up a spot for somebody who is really serious about studying your second choice language. So keep that in mind. And like Shamarcus said, we do recognize that it can be a little tougher for West Coast students, or students west of the Rockies to attend classes. We may be moving class times back a little bit for winter to help with that. But we will do our best to match you with a language and a time that works for you as indicated in your application. Okay, Shamarcus, I will pass it over to you for a moment.
I have a few questions I've tagged. One question is there a certificate of completion? Absolutely. You will receive your certificate of completion, of course, after the program. You get it based on if you have attended all your classes within the 3 excused absences. So if you meet the 3 excused absences, that's fine. Also, if you completed all of your required surveys. So we send 3 surveys throughout the year that you will have to complete. And that will also dictate if you will receive your certificate after the program. And yeah, just general participation throughout the program, you will receive it. I will note that, yes, you should make an effort in your classes to make good grades, but your grades does not dictate if you will get your certificate. Yeah, that's that for that question. Next question, are the scheduled days for classes chosen by the student or by the instructor? You choose your class times. You, in your application, it will have a section that you specifically rank or choose the scheduled times that you would like to attend. So say for instance, let me try to pull up the specific dates from our website. So these are the schedule options. This is on the NSLI-Y website. We are under this beautiful tab right here that says Virtual NSLI-Y. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the scheduling options. And so in the application, it will ask you to rank your top 3 choices for when you want to have your classes or what times best work for you. So say for instance, if you're on the West Coast, maybe 6:30 on Wednesday and 10:30 a.m. on Saturday works best for you, right? Or Thursdays and Sundays. I'm not sure, right? So you will rank one of these or 3 of these based on when you're available and what time works best for you in your classes. All right, so you do all of that through the application. The school year is over. I'm unsure on how to get a transcript now that school is out. I'm not sure how your school have your grades posted or anything, if you have a portal or something of the sort. But if you have like a portal where you can pull your grades from online, anything unofficial is fine. You can take it from the portal where your grades are posted and submit that to us. Possibly reaching out to your guidance counselor. I'm not sure if they respond if school is out, but giving it a try helps. But any unofficial means of acquiring your transcript or your grades will suffice. It doesn't have to be directly from your professors, as long as you're able to access your actual grades, right? You actually have your grades, and submit them, that'll be fine. Other questions? Let's see. Let's see. Some of these we have already answered.
There are a few questions related to, and Shamarcus, you might have just covered this a few minutes ago, but I was too focused on writing. In terms of being limited to high school students only. It is limited to high school students only. So we do get a lot of inquiries from seniors who will be either in a gap year or not, or continuing on college or something like that afterwards. And unfortunately, they would not be eligible. So students need to be in high school at the time of participation in the program in order to be eligible.
Yeah. We have one question here. Can someone with lots of language experience participate in an overseas program only? Having a lot of language experiences does look great for the overseas program. And I wouldn't say it doesn't look good for Virtual NSLI-Y, but just being a novice in the target language that you're looking for is ideal, or is part of our eligibility to be able to participate in the program. But I wouldn't say that it's a big disadvantage for having other language experiences under your belt. You just want to focus really on your goals for that language. So if you're a type of person who's just like, I want to have every language under my belt, right? And you don't have any real future intentions with like Chinese or Hindi or whatever your target language is with Virtual NSLI-Y, then that will make a less, it wouldn't be a strong application, right? So as long as you, say for instance, you want to pursue Hindi with Virtual NSLI-Y, as long as you have a clear short-term or long-term goal for what you want to do with Hindi, then that's fine, right? As long as you meet the eligibility requirements, as long as you're able to have a specific plan for your language studies, then you are fine in your application. For acceptance rates, I see a question about acceptance rate. We usually don't talk about like the acceptance rates. We don't have any figures or numbers to like throw out there. It really varies between year to year and between languages. We also just don't want to promote that just because we don't want to make it seem like it's a big competition, right? I know a lot of you maybe seniors applying for like colleges and stuff like that. We don't want to make it as stressful and as competitive or seem as competitive as those college applications, right? We want everyone to feel like, hey, we all have a fair chance of being accepted into the program, and we don't want to scare you away with like this figure that 1% of you will get in or something like that. It's not actually 1%, right? But just hypothetically speaking, we don't want to like put those numbers out there to try to make it intimidating. What else? There's a student who will be graduating in June 2024. Could it still apply for the summer 2024 overseas program? Not too savvy on the overseas eligibility.
Yeah, we would recommend going to the NSLI-Y website because there are some differences in eligibility and and gap year and that sort of thing between virtual NSLI-Y and overseas NSLI-Y. But Shamarcus and I really focus on virtual NSLI-Y, so we wouldn't want to give you the wrong information.
Yeah. Another question is, I have been learning the preferred language on my own through the app for the past few months. Does that disqualify me from the program? No. As long as you meet the eligibility requirements in terms of being a novice and you can answer these can-do statements, unable to answer these can-do statements that we have on our website. So that's under the eligibility link that was on the main page. Oh, well, can't go there. But it should work on your side, maybe just my Wi-Fi. As long as you can't answer those can-do statements, then you're fine. But formal study in any target language would disqualify you, but self-study does not disqualify you. So if you studied on Duolingo, or if you just watch YouTube videos in Korean or something like that, that doesn't disqualify you. But formal study does. So if you have taken a class formally at your school, then that would disqualify you.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, we do really recommend for all of the folks who are asking good questions about, how much of the language can I know? I do recommend going to the page that Shamarcus is showing on the screen right now and checking out those can-do statements. So if you can do any of the things under that link, then you are likely not eligible for virtual NSLI-Y. But if, maybe a little bit, you can, some characters, or again, like some really basic vocabulary, but you can't do any of the things noted on that link there, unable to affirmatively answer the can-do statements, then you would still be eligible. So do go there, and that's a great way of just being able to tell, is this at the right level for you? Because again, we don't want this to be unstimulating for you or uninteresting. And so if you know a little bit of the language, check out those can-do statements, and that should answer your question as to whether this program is at the correct level for you.
Yeah. We have a student with 2 questions. Someone previously applied to the overseas program but was not accepted. And they're asking, will their previous application be considered for this upcoming application? No, for us in Virtual NSLI-Y, we will not look at your previous application for the overseas program. You'll come in as a blank slate for us for the most part. We will not look at that in consideration for this application. And even if this wasn't X, but even if you were a previous applicant to Virtual NSLI-Y and you were not accepted, please apply again. We don't consider that as well. That you previously applied and wasn't accepted, right? We don't say like, oh, you wasn't accepted last time, we won't accept them this time, right? Please keep reapplying, right? We will welcome that. The second part of the question was, if my parent is a native speaker for the language I'd like to apply for, should I still apply? And they only have a handful of phrases, but no writing, reading, very limited speaking experiences. And so this goes back to the can-do statements, being novice, right? If you're a novice language learner, you haven't had any formal study, you cannot answer these can-do statements, then you're fine, right? And you have no formal study in the language.
Someone says that the can-do statement link is broken. Could you click on that, Shamarcus, and see if it's, oh God. Okay, thank you, anonymous attendee. We will look into that and get that corrected as soon as possible. I'm sorry about that. It is an external link, which worked very recently, but apparently it doesn't now. So please check back. We'll prioritize getting that link to work.
Yeah. What else?
And yes, this will be uploaded later. We intend to, we'll likely just be making this a public link on our YouTube channel. But the other way to get a recording for this is to sign up for, Shamarcus, if you could scroll up to the top of this page. On every single page on the NSLI-Y website, there's a gray box on the right where you can sign up for updates. And just to make clear, it's not updates on your application. Those will happen if you apply or if you start an application. These are, if you sign up in this gray box, that means that you will receive information about like when the next application is due, about our Q&As. It might be how you found out about today's Q&A. So we'll put a link to this in our next email coming from there.
Yeah.
There are a couple of questions relating to how many students there are or how many slots there are. So for fall 2023, and this can vary by term, which is part of why Shamarcus was saying, we don't have like a percentage of admittance. It really varies by term and by language and by time. There are 150 scholarships available for fall. So the number of scholarships available per language is partially based on how many applications we have historically received for that language. Korean is very popular at this time. So I think we have the most sections for Korean, followed by Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. And then we have just one section for Turkish and Hindi. But that is, somewhat equivalent to the number of applications that we receive for each language. So it's difficult to say, which one is easier or harder to get into per se, but that is how many students are going to be in the program in fall. And in winter, it will be a different number. Each term can really vary, again, based on budget considerations and teacher availability.
Let's see. Please keep the questions coming. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
There's a question, does previous travel experience factor into eligibility? Somewhat. So we do want to know if, for example, you've lived in a country where that language is spoken for a long period of time, then similar to my answer earlier on about opportunities, if two students are equal, but one lived abroad for 4 years and had opportunities to learn one of these languages before, then we might look at more seriously at the student who hasn't had that opportunity. But it's not, it doesn't make you ineligible to have lived abroad or to have studied abroad. But we do ask because it is a factor among many factors when we're reviewing applications.
Yeah. And there was a late attendee who's asking about the scheduling. You are able to choose your schedule preferences. The schedule options are listed here on our website. And in your application, you will rank them, right? So you will have 3 slots to rank them. You will choose your best availability or the best scheduling option based on your availability from these 4 options. What are the 6 languages associated with NSLI-Y? Well, for Virtual NSLI-Y, the 6 languages we offer is Arabic, Mandarin, Chinese, Hindi, Korean, Russian, and Turkish. And for NSLI-Y, you can visit our website and learn more about the languages they offer, but they are listed here.
I think I answered the top one already. Can you apply in one language for Virtual NSLI-Y and then apply for NSLI-Y in another language? Yes, but well, I'll say yes and respond to this one. But again, we recommend that you stick with the language because these languages are tough. As someone who speaks Russian, I'm someone who, I was able to study abroad. I was able to minor in it. I was able to live in Russian-speaking countries for a number of years. But I'm still trying to keep it up. And these are extremely rewarding languages, as Marcus briefly mentioned during his presentation. And we highly, highly recommend it. But if you really want to get to a point where you can read the news or start to understand, elements of the culture or untranslatable words and really get the language to click, it's going to take some real commitment. And so we recommend that whatever language you choose for Virtual NSLI-Y is the one that you continue in, but that's not a requirement. So.
And this is a good question. Will we be able to reach out to fellow students? Absolutely, that's within my field. Other than your class times, you will be able to interact with your classmates. There's 9 other students who will be in the room with you. Outside of that, you will have the option of attending student group meetings. So I host the student group meetings. We send an invitation out to all Virtual NSLI-Y participants for the fall 2023 group to attend. And so those are good opportunities for you to interact and learn about your peers from around the US, right? Build your network, build friendships, and be able to engage with them. I'm a very fun guy, so there are a lot of fun activities, very insightful activities we have planned. I will also have alumni come in for Virtual NSLI as well as the NSLI Overseas program come to speak to you all to talk more about the NSLI program, to encourage you to apply to that, and much, much more in store. So yes, absolutely, you will be able to interact with your peers, other peers on the program.
Yeah, that's a priority that this be fun. We get a lot of students who are really, really intense about learning languages, which is great, but we also want you to have fun and get to know each other and feel like you're part of a community and a network. So that's absolutely built into the program. I've tagged 2 of the newer questions. One is sort of the differences between fall and winter programs. I appreciate you asking that. They are exactly the same. There's no difference in terms of course content, essentially, between applying for fall or applying for winter. So we don't have like 2 tiers, and it's just a different set of times. That's basically in a different application cycle. And then we kind of answered this before, but to be more clear, it says, does attending Virtual NSLI-Y increase or decrease our chances of getting accepted? It's again, it's not a guarantee that if you do well in Virtual NSLI-Y that you'll be accepted for overseas NSLI-Y. They have different criteria for what they're looking for. It's a completely different application. But if you do well in Virtual NSLI-Y, it is noted when you apply for overseas NSLI-Y how you did. And so essentially, to go back to my note about grades at the top of this presentation, we only grade students in this program to help students understand where they're at. We're really not focused on your grades. But there will be a note from your teacher as to, well, this student never came to class, or this student was disrespectful, or this student was really interested in the cultural content in the program, or this student had a difficult time, but they came to all the classes and they submitted all their homework, and they've really started to make some progress near the end of the course. These are it's just a sentence, but it's in there. So do keep that in mind. So it can help you, it can hurt you. It's not necessarily one way or the other, but it's if you do well in Virtual NSLI-Y, that is taken into, or not well, that is taken into consideration among the many other factors that they're looking at for overseas NSLI-Y.
Yeah. I have 2 questions here I'll answer. Does this program go beyond high school students? Is there students from these countries that attend in Virtual NSLI-Y while in virtual classroom? For our program, Virtual NSLI-Y is purely for US high school students. So you have to be a high school student between the ages of 15 to 18 within the birth date range that we have listed on our website. So we target high school students, though there are other Department of State programs that are for older youth. So for college age students, so I am like alumni of like the Gilman Scholarship. Gilman is the Department of State program where you can apply as someone who's older than 18, right? So you can apply to those programs. You can find them on the eca.state.gov website. There's a list of several opportunities, even possibly for non-US citizens who would like to have a scholarship program to study languages. So you can explore their website to find any programs where you may not meet the eligibility requirements for Virtual NSLI-Y, but maybe for others. And then as we mentioned, right, we have, well, NSLI still is for high school students, but still, ECA website has other programs for non-high school students that you can explore to study languages. And then the second part of the question is, there are students from these countries that attend. They don't necessarily attend, so there may be students. It depends on your teacher and how they structure their classes. Say for instance, I know the Mandarin class, and I think as well as the Korean class, they bring in guest speakers, or probably all of them actually. They bring in guest speakers to come and speak to you all. So they could be peers, or they could be older people who would like to share the languages and share the culture with you all that speak to the students, right? And so they will just come in and you will engage in certain things, such as, I know in the Arabic class, you'll cook falafels one day, and that's super fun, where you can, all be live and cooking falafels together and guided by someone. There may be like dance classes that are online during the class time, right? It really depends on the curriculum what your teacher has planned for you all during the class time, but there will be like some cultural exchange opportunities. Then there's another question. I'm in California. Once the class time is chosen, if I can't make it to a certain class in a weekday, possibly due to my regular school hours and tests, would there be other alternative time or weekends for makeup classes? So we really want to stress that like you should choose a time slot that fits your schedule completely. So say for instance, Monday and Wednesday is something that you rank as your first choice on your application, right? But you can only attend classes on Wednesdays because Mondays you have soccer practice at 6:30, right? then that wouldn't be the best option that you should rank as your first choice, right? You should rank something that completely fits your schedule. Going back to our policy, you only have 3 excused absences. So excessive absences or tardies could lead to dismissal from the program. So that's why we really want to stress that, like, if it doesn't fit your schedule for this term, then maybe apply for the winter 2024 portion or part of the program. But we really want to make sure that, like, you choose a time slot that best fits your availability completely, right?
I just got a question about if you're applying and you've only been overseas or you've been to a particular country for just 1 to 2 weeks, should you note that on your application? We do ask you to note that. It's not going to heavily sway, whether you're going to get in or not or anything. So don't worry about it too much. But it can just be helpful to get a sense of, what part of the world have you been in? We understand that nobody's going to pick up a language in 1 to 2 weeks. So again, that shouldn't affect your eligibility language-wise. But we do ask you, anywhere where you've spent more than a few days and just gotten a sense of the culture, that would be helpful for us to know. We're getting there. We have just a few minutes. We might even get through all these. So some of these we did already kind of respond to earlier, but and a couple of these are more related to overseas NSLI-Y. So just to be clear, for virtual NSLI-Y, we have 2 terms per year. One is fall and one is winter. And then overseas NSLI-Y has the academic year program and the summer program. So Shamarcus and I really do just focus on virtual NSLI-Y. We have, we communicate with our colleagues and assist with some overseas NSLI-Y things, but we're really, in terms of eligibility, I would guide you to the NSLI-Y webpage, or you can email NSLI-Y@americancouncils.org. And that's really like the overseas account, while virtual NSLI-Y@americancouncils.org is me and Shamarcus. And Shamarcus, actually, we'll keep answering questions, but could you go back to the presentation really quick and put up I think it's the final slide. Yeah. So just so you all can see this, here's the website we've been referring to. Again, we will be sure to make sure that can do statements link is replaced. But we recommend, if there are any questions, again, that we don't answer today, or that that come up for you later, you can email us at Virtual NSLI-Y, and that is me and Shamarcus. So you're going direct to the source, and mostly Shamarcus. I don't want to take credit for all of the emails that you answer. So we can answer those specific questions, and we're also receiving some questions about other programs. But again, Shamarcus and I we work for Virtual NSLI-Y, so we have some awareness of other Department of State Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs programs, but we would advise you to go, again, straight to the source to look for information on those programs, because we're really focused on Virtual NSLI-Y. What else do we have? I'm going to dismiss the ones that aren't about Virtual NSLI-Y, just again, because we're not the best resources for that information. I think Cindy asked a question that I think we've more or less answered, but just to make clear, there's overseas NSLI-Y is its own thing, and they have their own selection criteria. But again, we would encourage students who apply for Virtual NSLI-Y to be thinking sort of longer term about what language they want to choose. But that doesn't mean that a student who studies, for example, Hindi in Virtual NSLI-Y, but then applies for the Turkish program, that doesn't mean they're not going to get in. What they're looking at is that student serious about studying in Turkey, and can they explain that? And it's a whole other set of criteria. So I know that's not a straightforward answer, but I hope it helps a little bit. Any more questions before we wrap up, given that you can always email us at virtualnsly@americancouncils.org. You're welcome to the answer coming in. So, well, thank you so much for all of you for attending. And we really appreciate your interest. And please do feel free to follow up with us. And someone did make the suggestion that we make these frequently asked questions more available on our website. We agree with you, and we're working on it. So there is a frequently asked questions section on our website, but we understand it's not as thorough as this session was. So we do intend to develop that section some more and add some more details to make sure that you can access that information asynchronously and don't have to necessarily email or attend one of these webinars. But we really appreciate your interest. Please let us know if you have any more questions, and thank you very much for attending.
Thank you all.